The knot in my stomach was so tight I thought I might be sick. Here I was, David, the father of the bride, dressed in a tuxedo that felt like a straitjacket, on what should have been the happiest day of my life. My only daughter, Qley, was getting married. And all I could think about was the secret I was hiding in the parking lot. I kept telling myself it was a good thing. I was just giving people a choice. I was being a good host. But the sick feeling in my gut told me the real truth. I was about to betray my daughter on her wedding day. It all started weeks ago. Qley and her fiancé Liam sat my wife Brenda and me down. They are both very serious vegans. This isn't just a diet for them. It is a deep belief about not hurting animals and protecting the planet. Qley was so excited as she told us about the wedding menu. It was all going to be vegan. She described fancy tomato tarts, a mushroom pastry, and cheesecake made from cashews. She was so happy and proud. But all I could think about was my side of the family. My brother Ray and all my aunts and uncles. They are big meat eaters. A celebration without a roast or steak is not a real celebration to them. I pictured them at the wedding, being forced to eat what my brother calls rabbit food. I imagined them being miserable, complaining, and maybe even sneaking out to a fast food place. I saw it as my job, as the father of the bride, to make sure everyone was happy. So I came up with a plan. A very bad plan. I talked to my brother Ray. He loved the idea. He called it Operation Meet and Greet. He knew a guy with a mobile barbecue smoker, a whole kitchen on wheels. We decided to set it up secretly in the far corner of the wedding venue parking lot, hidden behind a big tree. It would be just for the family members who wanted real food. I paid for top-quality brisket, ribs, and pulled pork. In my mind, I was being generous. I was providing an option. I pushed down the little voice that said this was wrong. The day of the wedding, my guilt was eating me alive. The ceremony was beautiful. Qley looked so beautiful walking down the aisle. She trusted me completely. I gave her away to Liam, and I felt like a fraud. After the ceremony, everyone moved to the reception hall for dinner. I saw Qley and Liam look at the vegan buffet for the first time. Her face lit up with pure joy. She turned to Liam and said, "It is perfect. Everything is exactly as we dreamed. No compromises." When she said that word, compromises, it felt like a punch. My secret barbecue station suddenly felt like the terrible lie it was. I had to look away. I felt so ashamed. I snuck away and called Ray on my phone. He answered and I could hear him in the parking lot. "Is everything ready?" I whispered. "The barbecue brigade is in position," he said cheerfully. "We are hidden behind the big tree. The meat smells amazing." I told him to be discreet. "This is just for the family," I said. "No one else needs to know." He laughed and told me not to worry. Hanging up, I tried to feel confident. I told myself I had pulled it off. I walked into the dining hall and took my seat. I looked around the room, smiling at guests. And then I saw it. An empty chair. It was where my brother Ray was supposed to be sitting. A cold fear shot down my spine. My secret was no longer just a secret in the parking lot. It was already pulling people away from my daughter's wedding. The reception party was going on around me. People were laughing and talking. I had to give a speech. I stood up and said some words about love and family. I have no idea what I said. I was so nervous. Qley smiled at me, and I felt like the worst person in the world. I sat down and tried to eat my salad, but I could not swallow. I kept watching the door. Then I saw Brenda, Liam's mother, get up. She is also a vegan. She had a little frown on her face and she walked out the side door toward the restrooms. The restrooms were in the same direction as the big tree in the parking lot. My heart started pounding. She was gone for a few minutes. When she came back, her face was white. She did not look at me. She went straight to Liam and whispered in his ear. His smile faded. He nodded, kissed Qley, and followed his mother back outside. I knew it was over. They had found out. I sat there, frozen, waiting for the end. They came back inside. Liam looked angry. He went back to Qley and held her close. Then the music started for the first dance. The lights went down. A spotlight shone on Qley and Liam as they danced together. They looked so happy and in love. For a second, I thought maybe they would not say anything. Maybe they would wait until after the wedding to yell at me. I allowed myself a small, real smile. This was my daughter's moment. And then it happened. The doors at the back of the hall slammed open. The music stopped. Brenda was standing there. She was shaking with anger. She pointed right at me and screamed, her voice loud and clear in the quiet room. "They are serving dead animals in the parking lot." The whole room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone stared at me. I looked at Qley. The happiness on her face melted away. First she looked confused. Then she understood. Then she looked at me with a hurt so deep it broke my heart. It was a look of total betrayal. She slowly stepped away from Liam. She looked right at me. Her voice was a shaky whisper, but everyone heard it. "Dad, what did you do?" Before I could even try to answer, her eyes looked behind me and got wide with shock. I turned around. There was my brother Ray, standing in the main doorway. He had a big barbecue rib in his hand, and sauce was all over his face. He had no idea what was happening. He saw me and gave me a big thumbs up. "Hey Dave," he yelled, "that brisket is amazing. You better come get some before it is all gone." The whole room erupted into noise. People were gasping and talking. But I did not hear any of it. All I could see was my daughter, standing in the middle of the dance floor in her beautiful white dress, her wedding day ruined. And I knew without a doubt that I was the one who had ruined it. The noise in the room was a wave of gasps and shocked whispers that crashed over me. I was drowning in it. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly on the floor. My mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. What could I possibly say? Qley was just staring at me, her eyes wide and glistening with tears. She was too stunned to cry. Liam stepped fully in front of her, his arm out like a shield, his face a mask of pure anger. Brenda was still pointing at me, her whole body trembling. And then Ray, my stupid, clueless brother, finally realized something was wrong. His smile faded as he looked around the silent, staring crowd. He dropped the rib onto a plate with a clatter. The sight of that greasy, half-eaten rib sitting there on my daughter's perfect vegan reception table felt like the final ugly stamp on my failure. Qley finally moved. She didn't run to me. She didn't scream. She took a step back away from me and shook her head slowly. Her voice was broken. "You did this. At my wedding. You brought meat here." I found my voice, but it was a weak, pathetic thing. "Qley, honey, let me explain. It was just for the family. I didn't want anyone to be hungry. I was just trying to be a good host." Even as I said the words, I heard how hollow they were. Liam spoke, his voice cold and sharp. "A good host. You lied to us. You went behind our backs and you spat on everything we believe in. On our wedding day. This was not about food, David. This was about respect. And you have none for us." I saw several of my aunts and uncles who had been out at the barbecue slinking back into the room, looking guilty. One of my uncles still had a napkin stained with barbecue sauce in his hand. Qley saw it too. A single tear finally escaped and traced a path down her cheek. She looked at the napkin, then at the empty seat where Ray should have been, then back at me. The trust was gone from her eyes. It was just gone. All the years of being her dad, of walking her to school, of teaching her to drive, of giving her advice, it all felt like it was crumbling to dust right in front of me. She turned away from me. She looked at Liam, her face full of a pain I had caused. "I can't be here," she whispered. "I can't." And then she walked. She didn't run. She just walked quickly, her head down, through the crowd of stunned guests, toward the exit. Liam was right behind her, his hand on her back, guiding her. He didn't look back at me. Brenda gave me one last look of utter disgust before she followed them out. The three of them, the most important people to the bride and groom, just left their own wedding reception. The band stood awkwardly on the stage, not knowing what to do. Guests started murmuring louder, some getting up from their tables. The party was over. It was destroyed. And I was left standing there, in the middle of the ruin, with everyone's eyes on me. My wife, Brenda, was crying quietly at our table. I had dragged her into this too, by keeping the secret from her. Ray finally walked over to me, his face pale. "Dave, I am so sorry, man. I had no idea." I just waved a hand at him, too numb to speak. What was there to say? He was just my idiot accomplice. I was the mastermind. I was the one who didn't trust my daughter. I was the one who thought I knew better. I was the one who valued a piece of meat over my own child's happiness and beliefs. I looked around the beautiful room, at the uneaten vegan food, at the confused and upset faces. I had done this. I had taken a day of pure joy and turned it into a nightmare. And I knew, with a certainty that sank into my bones, that the look on Qley's face, the sound of her broken voice, that was something I was going to carry with me for the rest of my life. The question wasn't if I was the bad guy. The question was, how could I ever possibly fix this? The silence after they left was worse than the screaming. It was a heavy, awful quiet that made my ears ring. Everyone was just staring at me. I could feel their eyes, like little pins sticking into my skin. My wife, Brenda, she wouldn't even look at me. She just had her head in her hands, crying softly. I took a step toward her, but she flinched away. So I just stood there, alone in the middle of all these people. I saw my brother Ray shuffle out of the room, his head hanging low. The band started packing up their instruments quietly. One of the waiters began clearing plates, the clinking of the forks and knives sounding way too loud. The party was over. It was dead. And I had killed it. I had to get out of that room. I couldn't breathe. I turned and walked out, not looking at anyone. I went straight to the parking lot. I saw the mobile barbecue smoker over by the big tree. It looked stupid and ugly sitting there. A couple of my cousins were still standing around it, looking confused. They saw me and quickly walked away. I just stood there in the dark, leaning against my car, feeling like the biggest fool who ever lived. All my good intentions, all my talk about being a good host, it was all just a lie I told myself. I was just a man who thought he knew better than his own daughter. I was so worried about my brother Ray having a good time that I ruined my daughter's wedding. What kind of father does that? After a while, my wife Brenda came out. She walked right past me to her car. I called her name. She stopped but didn't turn around. Her voice was tired. "I am going to Qley and Liam's apartment," she said. "I don't know if she will want to see me, but she shouldn't be alone. I need you to not come, David. You have done enough for one night." Then she got in her car and drove away. I was left completely alone. I drove home to our empty, dark house. I didn't even take off my tuxedo. I just sat on the couch in the living room and stared at the wall. I must have fallen asleep because the sun was coming up when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Liam. It was short and to the point. It said, "Qley does not want to talk to you. Do not call. Do not come over. We are leaving for our honeymoon today as planned. We will contact you when we are ready." That was it. No anger, no yelling. Just a cold, firm wall. That hurt more than anything. I had been erased. I spent the next few days in a fog. I went to work, I came home, but I wasn't really there. Brenda stayed at Qley's apartment for 2 nights. When she came home, the house was different. Colder. She talked to me about bills and groceries, but that was it. She didn't ask me how I was. She didn't tell me how Qley was. It was like I was a ghost in my own home. A week went by. I saw pictures online that a friend of Qley's had posted. They were from the honeymoon. She and Liam were on a beach, smiling. She looked happy. It was a relief to see her smile, but it also felt like a knife because I knew I wasn't part of that happiness. I was the reason she had needed to escape. I realized then that I couldn't just wait for her to be ready to talk. I had to do something. Saying sorry wasn't enough. I had to prove I understood what I did wrong. So I started reading. I read articles about veganism. I watched documentaries about factory farming. I forced myself to look at the things Qley cared about so deeply. And it was hard. It was really hard. But I started to understand. It wasn't about not liking the taste of meat. It was about a whole system of suffering I had never wanted to think about. One night, I told Brenda what I was doing. It was the first real conversation we had since the wedding. She listened, and she didn't say much, but she nodded. It was a start. I knew I had a long, long way to go. The trust was broken, and fixing it would be the hardest thing I had ever done. But I was her dad. I had to try. I had to prove that I could learn, that I could respect her choices, even if I didn't fully understand them at first. The wedding was over, but the real work was just beginning. The next few weeks were the longest of my life. The house was so quiet. Brenda talked to me, but it was about practical things like what to get at the grocery store or a bill that was due. The easy laughter we used to have was gone. She was hurting too, caught between me and our daughter. I saw the photos from the honeymoon on social media. Qley and Liam were in some tropical place, standing in the ocean and smiling. She looked happy, and that was the only thing that gave me any comfort. But I knew that when she came back, the real world and what I had done would be waiting for her. I couldn't just sit around waiting for a phone call that might never come. I had to do something to show I was serious about changing. So I started trying to learn. I spent my evenings reading websites about veganism. I watched documentaries about where our food really comes from. I have to be honest, some of it was really hard to watch. I saw things I had spent my whole life ignoring. I started to understand that for Qley, it wasn't just a list of foods she wouldn't eat. It was a belief that animals shouldn't suffer for a meal. It was about the health of the planet. I had been so dismissive, calling it a phase or rabbit food. I felt ashamed. I decided to make a small change, just for myself, to see if I could do it. I told Brenda I was going to try being vegan for 1 week. She looked surprised, the first real emotion she had shown me in weeks. She didn't say she was proud, but she didn't tell me I was stupid either. That first week was tough. I ate a lot of peanut butter sandwiches and salads. I missed cheese. I really missed a good burger. But every time I wanted to quit, I remembered the look on Qley's face at the wedding. I pushed through. Brenda even started helping, finding new recipes for us to try together. We made a lentil soup that was actually pretty good. It was the first time we had cooked together in a long time. It felt like a tiny crack of light in a very dark room. The day Qley and Liam were due back from their honeymoon, my stomach was in knots. I didn't know if she would call. I didn't know if I should call her. I just waited. The phone didn't ring that day, or the next. I was starting to lose hope. Then, on the third day after they got back, my phone buzzed. It was a text message. It was from Qley. It wasn't long. It just said, "Mom said you've been trying to learn about why this is important to me. Is that true?" My hands were shaking so bad I could barely type. I wrote back, "Yes. It is true. I am so sorry, Qley. For everything." A minute later, 3 little dots appeared on the screen. She was typing. They appeared and disappeared for what felt like an hour. Finally, a new message came. "Liam and I are going to the new vegan place on Maple Street for dinner on Saturday. If you want, you and Mom can come. No pressure. Just dinner." I read that message 10 times. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a hug. It was a door, cracked open just the tiniest bit. It was a chance. I showed the text to Brenda. She smiled a real smile for the first time in weeks. She said, "Well, David, it looks like you have a date. Don't be late." I knew it was just a dinner. I knew one meal wouldn't fix the huge mess I had made. The memory of the wedding would always be there, a dark stain on a day that should have been perfect. But as I got ready for that dinner on Saturday, putting on a clean shirt and feeling more nervous than I did on my own wedding day, I felt a small flicker of hope. I had broken my daughter's trust completely. But maybe, just maybe, I could spend the rest of my life earning a little piece of it back.